Hello there, welcome to episode 7. I hope everyone who is watching this is keeping well and keeping healthy. So for this video, I thought I'd try and do something a little bit different, try and mix it up a little bit. Now this is a video for my top three MCU movies. Now this for me is an absolute almost impossible task, since I am so in love with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So I started with Iron Man, the original Iron Man, and looked at them all of the movies, all the way through to Spider-Man Homecoming, the most recent one. And I've managed to narrow it down to my top three. It's been so difficult. I've toed and froed. I've said this one, I've said that one. No, not that one. Yes, that one. But I have narrowed it down to my top three. So with all that being said, my name is Jay, and this is my opinion. So for my third most favourite MCU movie, it goes to Guardians of the Galaxy, the original outing by Star-Lord and his motley crew. Now for me, Guardians of the Galaxy was a perfect storm. It was the right place at the right time. Guardians of the Galaxy was a complete departure from everything we'd seen pretty much before that. I mean, Iron Man, Captain America, the Avengers movie. I mean, with the exclusion of Thor, we had some intergalactic traveling in it. Most of the action, and 99% of the action of all the MCU movies before Guardians of the Galaxy, was all set on Earth. So it's all kind of familiar and kind of knew what to expect to a degree. So this movie was the first one to really go full on intergalactic action and adventure, and it was so bloody good. The first thing, probably the best thing to talk about, is the cast. I mean, there was Chris Pratt, the front man, who played Star-Lord. I mean, I'm guilty of not knowing Chris Pratt prior to Guardians of the Galaxy. I've seen him in Parks and Recreation after the fact, but man, that bloke came almost out of nowhere for me. He was absolutely legendary as Star-Lord, and by God, does he have a hell of a comedic presence on screen. He just steals the show no matter what moment he's in, at playing that lovable rogue Star-Lord. And there was Zoe Saldana, who played Gamora. I'd seen her prior to Guardians of the Galaxy in the Star Trek movies, so I knew for a fact she had the acting chops to be in an MCU movie. She was, successful to portraying that straight-laced, serious warrior, that adopted daughter of Thanos character in the movie. And plus, she looked great in green, which was somewhat confusing for me. Then there was the double act of the Guardians. You had Groot and Rocket, voiced by Bradley Cooper and Vin Diesel. Obviously, Vin Diesel's role in it was fairly minimal, barely acting, which is pretty much standard for Vin Diesel anyway. But Bradley Cooper, Rocket Raccoon, my favourite Guardian, absolutely legendary. Brilliant performance. Probably my biggest surprise is obviously the next one in the Guardians was Dave Bautista, who plays Drax. Now, I always have been a massive WWE fan. I'd seen Dave Bautista as a professional wrestler, and I always thought he had a presence, he's got a look, but his performance as Drax was just off the chart awesome. I mean, that came out of left field. I did not see that one coming, and he just killed me with his comedic timing, and his presence was just amazing in the movie. And props to Dave Bautista, he was a big surprise. I mean, I could go dribbling on and on and on about all the other supporting cast and this person and that person, but suffice it to say that it's jam-packed with just outstanding and stellar performances. I mean, there's no mistaking the tone and of the movie, and that this is supposed to be fun, light, and certainly not to be taken too seriously. I know for me, again, this is my opinion, this was much needed return to form for the MCU movies, because prior to Guardians of the Galaxy, the release of Guardians of the Galaxy had been Iron Man 3 and Thor 2, The Dark World, which for me, again, my opinions, was the lowest point of the MCU movies. They weren't as great by MCU standards, and even today I still consider those two probably the my least favorite MCU movies, so they're certainly not going to make this top 3 list. Spoilers. So to kind of summarize, really, it was something new, it's something different, it's certainly something fresh and something much needed change of direction for the MCU movies. Great cast of characters, yeah, which had obvious chemistry on scene. You could see they were having an absolute blast while making this movie. And normally, if the cast are having fun, the movie's going to be a good movie. It was funny, there was so entertaining, and there were so many jokes. The jokes to scene ratio was absolutely enormous in the movie. I didn't count them, but you know, there pretty much was very few straight serious scenes in the entire movie. There were so many jokes, and oh, love them so much. Yeah, along with all the funny scenes, there's great action as well. The action scenes, you know, they've got elements of comedy in them, of course, because of the tone of the movie, and the CGI effects were just great. You know, it's pretty much standard at that point for MCU movies, for them to be visually stunning as well as everything else. And lest we forget, it was the first time that we get a real good look at Thanos. I mean, you've seen him at the end of the tag scene at the end of the Avengers going, turning his big ballsack mush towards the camera, and but this, you get to see Thanos in all of his glory, not naked, because that would just be upsetting for everyone, but he was in his chair in full armor, just looking the badass warlord that we all know and love. And it also posed the question, when will the Guardians of the Galaxy meet and join the Avengers? I know that was something that after watching Guardians of the Galaxy for the first time, I was like, oh my god, I cannot wait to see Star-Lord and Tony Stark have a scene together. We have to wait a while before we get that in Infinity War, but it didn't disappoint. But yes, the Guardians of the Galaxy really did lay that groundwork quite nice. So at the number 2 slot, it's at number 2, there is Avengers Assemble, the very first Avengers movie. So for me, this was the very first MCU movie that was highly anticipated, and that was for me. I was itching to see this movie after seeing all the build-up of the previous MCU movies leading to this. At that point, it didn't get any bigger and it didn't get any better. God, I couldn't wait for the Avengers to come out. You know, because it was the first time, and at that point, the only time, you get to see all of those core Avengers characters that had been established in the previous movies. Just see them all together on screen. Oh, I mean, the trailers used to get me crazed to see this movie. I mean, it brought all of these characters together from the previous movies, as I said. You had Nick Fury, who the first time you saw him was in that tag scene at the end of Iron Man, the very first Iron Man movie. Hawkeye, you know, he has a cameo in the first Thor movie. Don't blink because you will miss it, but he's definitely there. You know, you got Black Widow, who's established in Iron Man 2. You know, everyone loves a bit of Scarlett Johansson. And you got obviously the Hulk, which was a reimagining of the Hulk, obviously played by Mark Ruffalo. And in my eyes, up until that point, it was the best incarnation of the Hulk. Because, you know, Marvel movies had always kind of struggled, I think, trying to put a good Hulk together. But this one was absolute magic. You know, and then you had Thor, you know, played by Chris Hemsworth. You know, there he was on screen, making it all men feel inadequate. And the return of Iron Man, you know, Robert Downey Jr. doing his Tony Stark thing and just killing it every time he's on screen. The man owns the character beyond a shadow of a doubt. And of course, there was finally there was Captain America, played by Chris Evans. I mean, Captain America: First Avenger was probably my least favorite MCU movie at that point. But I thought Chris Evans did a bang up job in bringing Captain America a bit more relatable, and that earnestness and that innocence almost to the character. I thought he did a good job. You know, you bring all these characters together on screen, and you know, all of these established characters now, and you know, I wondered just how exactly they would interact on screen together. But you know, there's no denying when you watched a movie that these guys had incredible chemistry. You know, whether that was positive chemistry or negative chemistry. You know, one thing you notice when you watch these movies, these guys end up fighting each other most of the way through the film. You know, one of my favourite moments in the movie is when Thor and Iron Man have a bit of a head-to-head fight in the forest, and they end up leveling a lot of the trees. You know, not a good message for deforestation, but you know, still a good scene anyway. And it kind of also plants the seed and that question that had been bugging me for a very long time: who's the strongest, Thor, the God of Thunder, or the Incredible Hulk? Yeah, I have my opinions. Yeah, my opinion is I think Thor all the way. But I wonder what your opinions are. I thought the makers of the movie kind of went a bit of a safe route as far as the villain is concerned, which is nothing wrong with that. Obviously, spoilers, but Loki doesn't die in the end of Thor. He returns for Avengers Assembled to be the big bad, and with kind of Thanos way back there in the background. I think it establishes very well what was kind of to come in the MCU movies. Probably the only negative thing I can say, or my just a little peeve, let's say, in the whole movie, is Loki's scepter, or as I've stolen the phrase from someone else, the Loki pokey stick. It just seemed a little bit easy and convenient for Loki to have to poke somebody in the chest with the tip of his scepter and it turns them bad. Now, after the fact, in the grand scheme of the MCU movies, I now understand and appreciate the purpose of the scepter, the fact that the blue stone had the Mind Stone in it, which you find out in Age of Ultron. But certainly at the time, and even to a degree now, it does just kind of grind a little bit when he does the little gentle poke in the chest and turns people bad. Just a little thing. So just to kind of summarize a little bit, there's great action. I mean, just the last 30 minutes alone, when the Jatari come through the portal and start attacking New York, and all the Avengers come together as a team and they fight the bad guys. Oh my God, it was a geek boy's wet dream. It really was. You know, just to see them all standing there in that kind of the trailer shot, you know, when they're all standing there looking at the bad guys, all looking like we're going to kick your ass in a minute. And it was great. You know, and the CGI still looks amazing even after 8 years. Lest we forget, this came out in 2012. So, you know, it's 8 years old, but the CGI still looks really, really good. You know, again, the cast was amazing. The script was funny and entertaining. And it's just an all-round fun movie. So that's my number 3 and number 2 picks to put together. Now let's find out what my number 1 was. So my number 1 movie in all the MCU movies is Thor Ragnarok. Now, this may not be a surprise to many people, but what can I say about this movie? It is amazing, and it is just genius, like a diamond bullet of genius right in the forehead. Mwah! There was so much geek fan service in this movie. I mean, I could drivel on about it for ages and ages and ages. You've got the obvious Jack Kirby references to the colour and designs of certain things in Stakar. They just filled the screen. You know, there's Planet Hulk references, and not to mention the Contest of Champions. Just so much stuff packed into this movie that I was just dribbling with geek fan service. All of these things were all wrapped into an amazingly entertaining, incredible, fun movie. I mean, when I went to see this movie, you know, to be fair, my expectations were actually quite low. You know, yeah, Thor was already established as a badass hero. You know, he'd had one good movie, his initial movie. I thought that was pretty good, and he had a really good showing in Avengers Assembled. Then came Thor to the Dark World, and he had another really good showing in Avengers Age of Ultron. But, you know, so it was kind of up and down with Thor. There'd not really been much consistency. So coming into Thor Ragnarok, I was a little bit apprehensive on whether they might be able to pull out a good movie for him. Of course, after the opening scene, all of those expectations were just not only blown out of the water, but sent into orbit, interstellar, into the sun, burnt to a crisp. Those expectations were gone well and truly. You know, the opening scene is, you know, Thor held captive, and he ends up having a fight with Surtur and his minions. And, you know, you got the action, you know, bodies flying everywhere, and you got the addition, the addition to the Led Zeppelin song, the Immigrant Song, and it was just pure bloody magic. It was genius. Again, diamond bullet right there. Absolute genius. And the not just that, but the reinvention of the Thor music theme, musical theme. You know, it had the classic orchestra, but it also had loads of retro synthesizers in it, and it was just again, I want to watch the movie now again. I've sold it to myself. I really want to watch this movie again. But it really set the tone on just how different this movie was going to be. And and not only was it going to be different, it was going to be profoundly different than any other Thor we'd seen beforehand. You know, and keeping on the subject of Thor, the character, this is a new Thor. The thing I love is that he doesn't take himself so seriously. In, you know, previous movies, he had been very straight-laced and angry, and I will do this. Yes, you can trust me. But man, he does not take himself very seriously in this movie. Chris Hemsworth had proven that he had an amazing presence on screen. You know, again, I said it before, he kind of puts all men to shame. But yeah, he has an amazing presence on screen. You just can't help but look at the guy, for whether it be his acting or whether you like his buff body, or, you know, he's, you know, devilishly handsome. You know, he clearly takes after me. But yeah, he has this presence, and his magnetism is the word I'm looking for. But what he did prove in this movie is he has just a great comedic timing, and which I think surprised a lot of people. But if you go back and watch his previous, you know, performances as Thor, he has the odd shining moment where you think, damn, this guy he's not only got the look, he's got the talent as well. And obviously, once again, you can't have Thor without Loki. Loki is back. Now, Loki has quite a journey through the MCU movies. You know, you look at his first appearance in Thor, right the way through. He goes up and down. He's back as good. He's bad. He's good. He's bad. But Tom Hiddleston is really, really good at creating that lovable villain. Even though, you know that Loki, he's not as straight-laced. You know, he's always up to something. But I think he becomes the brother figure that Thor really wanted initially. And, you know, then there's the Hulk. Oh, I love the Hulk so much. And you can't go wrong with Mark Ruffalo as Bruce Banner. But I'd said previously that up until in the Avengers, that at that point was my current incarnation of the Hulk. But when Hulk came in to Thor Ragnarok, no, Hulk in Thor Ragnarok is the best iteration of the Hulk. Just amazing. I didn't think it was possible to be able to improve on what the Avengers movies had already done with the Hulk. I thought, you know, you can't get much better than that. It's pretty much what you want. But man, then you Hulk put the gladiator armor on Hulk and put him in the Contest of Champions with Thor. Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. You know, then you throw Thor and Hulk together, and it's almost like a buddy cop movie. You know, they're opposites, but they're so alike, and all this other stuff. It's just, I can't stop saying good things about it, really. There's just so much, you know, you could speak about the characters in the movie. There's Korg and Meek, which, you know, they're particularly Korg is a scene stealer. That's the phrase I was looking for. There's Valkyrie, Tessa Thompson as Valkyrie. Hela, well, played by the stunning Kate Blanchett. I don't think I've ever been more attracted to a movie villain in my life. Jeff Goldblum, him portraying the Grand Master was so weird and quirky, and I loved him in every scene. As you could probably tell, with this being my #1 movie, I could gush about this movie for days and days and days and days. But I won't, of course. Well, what I will say, it's got an incredible cast, an incredible script. It's got great action. The fight between Thor, as I mentioned, between Thor and the Hulk in the Contest of Champions, probably one of my favourite moments in the entire MCU movie history. It's funny. God, it's so funny. You know, at that point, I thought maybe Guardians of the Galaxy was probably the funniest MCU movie. But I have to say, some people might find it controversial, but I think Thor Ragnarok is the funniest MCU movie. As I mentioned at the top of this segment, that you know, the incredible score, the amazing soundtrack to the movie just adds such a retro presence to the movie that just hits me where I live. I cannot express just how much I love this movie. And this movie was just so much levity when you consider that this is the penultimate movie before Infinity War. You had Thor Ragnarok, Black Panther, which again, you know, goes in its own direction, which is awesome. But then you got Infinity War when things get really serious. So having Thor Ragnarok there, that kind of one of those last steps before it gets really serious and really dark. Having Thor Ragnarok there was just, I've done it a few times. Can't express just how brilliant it is. So there they are. Those are my top 3 MCU movies to date. Anyway, you know, maybe if this channel carries on as the Marvel movies continue to roll out once the quarantine and lockdown is finished, you know, maybe the list will change. Who knows? But those are my top 3. So, with all that gushing aside, my name is Jay, and that was my opinion.